Yesterday, Donald Trump issued an executive order titled Initial Rescissions of Harmful Executive Orders and Actions. This decision has far reaching consequences, especially for trans women, Black women, immigrants, and other ostracized, exploited communities globally. If you care about human rights, racial justice, gender justice, listen, please. Because this executive order rescinds several crucial policies from the previous administration that were designed to address systemic inequities. What exactly was revoked, though? One, advancing racial equity, which was a policy aimed at addressing systemic racism in federal programs to create equity for Black groups and other groups, including Black women, obviously, that also, have to face gender discrimination. Preventing discrimination, the second one, which is a policy that protected LGBTQ plus individuals, including Black transgender women, from discrimination based on gender identity or sexual orientation. Three, the ending of private prisons. That this policy worked to end the federal government's reliance on private detention centers, which disproportionately harm Black and immigrant communities by perpetuating unsafe conditions that are also very inhumane and systemic inequities. Now, what does this mean specifically, though, for our work at AfroResistance that centers Black women and girls? The removal of the first one means that there's no longer a federal commitment to dismantling any form of inequity. This leaves barriers in education, in healthcare, in housing, and employment unchecked and growing. No more data. For Black transgender women, the rollback of Executive Order 13988 exposes them to more discrimination. Without these protections, the systemic challenges that they face are going to get very much worse. Now, it's equally troubling for immigrants. The rescission of the executive order means private detention centers, already notorious for poor conditions, will continue operating and more will probably pop up. Immigrants of African descent are disproportionately detained and they endure abuse and inhumane treatment, not to center all the sexual violence that Black immigrants face as well. And without 1412 that promised to restore fairness in the immigration system, Black immigrants will continue facing even more obstacles in systems that are already stacked against them. He also, mentioned climate in Executive Order 14008, which addressed the global climate crisis, which is now at risk. This really hits Black and Indigenous communities especially hard because African, Caribbean, and Latin American nations are already suffering from climate disasters like rising sea levels, more hurricanes, more droughts. And these regions contribute the least to the global emissions, but are left to bear the brunt of the crisis that we create in the North. Now, let's not forget also the historical exploitation of these lands. For centuries, colonialism and extractive industries have continued to steal resources, displace families, and really left environmental destruction behind them, right? Climate change is compounding these harms, pushing communities further into poverty and making basic survival a struggle and forcing more migration. We keep on saying this. But what is really at stake? Because this really isn't about policies on paper. It's about Black people, Black women losing, immigrants trapped in unsafe detention centers, and the entire Black majority nations facing climate disasters without any form of global accountability or support. Today, especially, I've been on calls all day with people asking, what can we do? Well, number one, one of the most obvious things is support organizations on the ground that are doing this work. Donate heavily to groups like AfroResistance, who are in the front lines fighting for racial justice, migration justice, and climate justice. Every contribution helps to amplify our work and it impacts communities most affected. You can visit our site www.afroresistance.org to get more information. The second thing, demand action. You have elected officials right in your community. Urge them to prioritize humane migration policies, climate justice, and gender justice. Hold them accountable for the impact of these rollbacks. This is not only an issue for nonprofit organizations to handle. And third, you can raise awareness. You can share this message. You can talk to your families, your workplaces, your communities about the decisions and how they impact Black women, immigrants, and other communities. Gente, this is not the time to stay silent. This is a battle for survival. This is a battle for our land, our resources, and our communities. We are literally under attack, and we cannot afford to back down. So get informed, take action, and come on, vamos.